Coming up on MiWeek, we hit the headlines of the week with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. From MSU's latest crisis to a debate over repealing the Second Amendment to pushing for regional transit. Plus, we head to Islandview in a One Detroit special report and hear some concerns as that neighborhood changes. Stay put, MiWeek is coming up.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Glad to have you with us heading into a holiday weekend, celebrating opening day of the Tigers, crossing fingers for any kind of spring weather. Big show coming up for you. Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of WDET are back at the table. We're taking on the stories that you've been talking about this week, including the sickening new charges at Michigan State University against Larry Nassar's former boss. If they're true, it's not a shock that Nassar got away with what he did. The trouble with rooting out systemic abuse. Plus, how about we just repeal the Second Amendment? We'll talk about the grenade thrown into the gun debate this week. Also, more headlines from around town. Governor Snyder encouraging regional transit, and politics get strange in Macomb County. And I have a One Detroit special report for you. We head to the Islandview neighborhood and listen to some of their concerns about the city, kids, and crime. All right, well, just when you thought it couldn't get worse for Michigan State, it really does. Larry Nassar's boss and former dean of the College of Osteopathic Medicine, William Strampel, arrested for porn and accusations of sexual assault and harassment by students. So this was the guy who was supposed to be making sure that Larry Nassar didn't prey on girls and young women. Add to that reports that show MSU spent $500,000 on social media tracking to see who was saying what about the university, and MSU is back in mediation with the victims. This leads to bigger questions of systemic abuse and just how much it is going to cost the university. Let's bring in Nolan Finley, Stephen Henderson. It's good to see you guys.
Good to be here.
Wow, you know, when the news came out at Michigan State this week, and you know, I almost wanted that over-the-shoulder television graphic. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, this is sickening stuff. Nolan, I'm going to start with you in the perception of what is happening at Michigan State.
Well, here's what I think the impact is. I think the settlement threshold for those lawsuits that the victims have filed just went way up because this indicates that the university is culpable. It wasn't just Larry Nassar isolated, as Luana Simon always contended. It was Larry Nassar and his boss who apparently knew about this, and you can't yet say he was a participant in it, but you can understand this leads some understanding to why he didn't react when those complaints came to him.
Right, and in the fact that, you know, that they got a tip and they went in and tried to start accessing computers, it also makes me think, wow, how many hard drives were wiped clean across the university? What are we looking at here? Because if this was the guy who was supposed to be the gatekeeper and then enforce, you know, some of the changes that were supposed to be made after a Title IX investigation, and then this?
I mean, Nolan's right. The culpability here goes way through the roof with this story, which seems to have come out of nowhere. I don't think anyone was expecting that this was what was going on. The story till now was that maybe they knew, maybe they didn't, and they didn't act quickly enough. Now the story is that you had his boss basically participating in this by watching videos of what had happened and all this other stuff.
I mean, they claim that was a video they showed at medical conferences to illustrate this procedure, which sounds like a lot of crap.
Yeah, no.
But what in the world? He had all these pictures of naked co-eds.
There's
on
nothing.
This
I mean, there's nothing about this that says it was okay. And my concern still is, okay, going forward, what do you do at that university to repair the damage? Now, the lawsuits are one thing, and that's about money. but you have all of this damage that's being done to the school's reputation, not just in sports. That's also in academics. You now have a politician who's been put in charge of that university supposedly to clean this up. His instincts are political. His instincts so far have been to punch back at the people who are making accusations about MSU. And I really worry about what kind of consequence that will mean for the university in not just the distant future, but in the near future. Think about when they try to go find a permanent president for that job. The damage that's being done now really makes it difficult.
Let me ask you this, Nolan. I know you've had some contact here and there. Have you talked to John Engler at all, and how you perceive the job that he's doing so far in this situation?
I've talked to John Engler. I think he's absolutely the right guy for the job because there's so much stuff that needs to be cleaned up before a new president does take place. I would liken him to Kevin Orr. You know, he's a guy who can come in, take the heat, do the hard things, and then leave the university, hopefully, in shape for a more suitable president, a president with academic credentials, and who can begin to reestablish this university as a place you want to send your kids. I think Engler's the right guy, but there's a lot to clean up. This $500,000 you mentioned,
I want to get
right?
to that. Yeah, but so the university had hired Weber Shandwick, which is a big PR firm.
Under Luana Simon.
Yes, under Luana Simon, to track social media. $500,000
right, for 1 month.
For 1 month of media tracking, which makes you think, wow, are we in the wrong profession?
But what was the point of it?
The point was to be able to track what the public opinion was of what was going on at Michigan State. And so they were tracking the gymnasts who were following the stars, whether it was people in media or anything like that, who were following and retweeting all of the response.
Doing that instead of actually responding to the accusations
but do you
and
think
cleaning their house.
So to me,
it was
the
a
question,
PR game for them.
It's also a question of this is a significant amount of money. I know that we're talking millions and millions in terms of the lawyers who were involved in it, how much they're billing, and where is this money going to be?
But if you look, I mean, if you were to hire for an institution of that size, caught in a scandal of that size at that point, tracking social media about that scandal would be, I mean, there's a huge undertaking. Now, should they have been focused on that? Probably not. But do you think John Engler is acting any differently? I mean, that's absurd. This is a guy who's not only a political actor.
John Engler didn't hire Weber Shandwick.
He hasn't, but he has hired John Truscott, his old
who's
PR
who's
person.
one of the best in the business in the state.
How much is he paying him to deal with PR? He's brought in Emily Palsrock.
Part of the job is fixing PR. The difference between this and what Luana Simon does, that hints that was part of the whole cover-up.
I got to tell you, and just to parse a few PR hairs here, John Truscott and what he could bring to the table in terms of established public relations credibility versus a 23-year-old kid who's tracking social media for $600 an hour, I think is a little different.
Is not a Piker outfit either.
It's puppy mill.
Here's the thing. I'm not swiping at John Truscott, who I have enormous respect for and I consider a friend. What I'm saying is that the instinct coming from the president's office at this point is not different. This is a political actor, and I can't believe you'd compare him to Kevin Orr, who was who was effective because he was divorced from all of the politics in the state and in the city.
But he also hired a communications team
from anybody.
because he recognized restoring the image and communicating positive action was part of the job.
John Engler is part of the political infrastructure, not just of the university, but also the state.
I think part of John Engler's job is to reestablish the image of that university, and you do that through communications. He's got a huge communications job for a university that didn't communicate at all and communicated poorly.
I guess what I'm saying is that his instinct is to redefine the image of that university in political terms that I don't think are the concern here. I think the number one concern that they have is the academic image that they have, and which has taken a huge hit,
and that's
just
part
because
of this job.
Just because of Engler, but because of Engler, it's taken a hit.
Hang on. I think you also have to look at the amount of money that's being put out here, and I think that's a serious concern for people in this state. It's a state university, and also the kids who are going to school there. Where is this money coming from, and where does it take from in terms of then furthering what the university is going to be?
This is pocket change compared to what's to come. Those settlements conservatively are going to hit 700, 800 million, $1 billion with 200 victims or more. And now this new information about the university's culpability in this could go up to $2 billion. Where's that money going to come from?
Right.
Insurance won't cover all of it. They can't dip into their endowment because most of that is targeted, restricted. Tuition hike. Can you bond it out? I know that they're working now to try to figure out where they get that money, because you can't put it on students, or the students will go somewhere else.
That's my point.
So maybe you've got to bond it out, or maybe you sell some things. Maybe that big spinny thing that Lou Anna Simon was so proud of, maybe that ends up owned by the Chinese.
Well,
you've got to find a couple $2 billion.
Yeah, there's a lot of facets to this story. All right. Turning now to the simmering gun debate in the country. Since the shooting in Parkland, the advocacy of teens from that school and around the country, there seems to be a different conversation surrounding finding some kind of common ground in gun regulations. This week, former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens dropped a bomb in the middle of the debate, suggesting that the Second Amendment just be repealed. That argument elicited an all-caps response from President Trump that the Second Amendment will never be repealed. But worth a discussion? Or does this just tear apart any kind of common ground that can be reached? I was surprised when I saw this week, Stephen, and I thought, oh, great. Is that what the gun debate really needs right now, is the whole, why don't we just throw out the Second Amendment when it comes down to, gosh, when you do some kind of gun control or reform of what the regulations are, we're not trying to take away people's guns, but when you say repeal the Second Amendment, that's exactly what people think about.
It's the way he sees the Constitution, and this is a guy who sat on the Supreme Court for 30-some years, one of the longest-serving justices. He was appointed by a Republican and sat on sort of the right side of the court for some time. I think the country moved around him and moved him to the left. John Paul Stevens is one of the brightest sort of constitutional minds we have. He sees the Constitution differently than other people. It's not the first time he said this, by the way. In the Heller case in 2008, when they, for the first time, assigned an individual right to the Second Amendment, he said the same thing. I talked to one of his clerks this week about this, one of his former clerks, and I think what he's up to here is trying to change the terms of the debate. So when we have arguments about gun control, the terms are almost always defined by the gun lobby, right? So we want to talk about getting rid of bump stocks, which we've been talking about now for months after the Las Vegas shooting. We argue back and forth about it. Congress says they might do something, then they don't. Even if you win that argument, let's say that we outlaw bump stocks, are you really moving the ball in terms of the distribution of weapons, the manufacture of weapons, the things that really contribute to the problem? And I think and John Paul Stevens is no rube. He knows that it would be virtually impossible to repeal the Second Amendment. But why shouldn't that be part of the argument that we're having? Why shouldn't we talk about the things that the founders believed that they put in the Constitution that were absurd? There are many of them,
right,
and why can't this be one of them?
But I think when you talk about saying, well, bump stocks, it really wouldn't make that big of a difference in the bigger part of the conversation. I think it would make a difference just in terms of that you're actually doing something and saying, if you can do this, maybe you can take 2 more steps and do something
and that
else.
has been the approach.
And I think that's absolutely what gun rights advocates are afraid of, that all of this stuff that's being put on the table as common sense gun legislation that everybody knows is not going to have much of an impact on violence overall or on mass shootings, is just a stepping stone, that slippery slope we talk about, toward a gun ban. And when you think about what Justice Stevens, by the way, never said as a conservative, or
he was appointed by Gerald Ford, he was appointed by Richard Nixon to the appeals court, and by Ford to the Supreme Court.
The most regretted appointment Republicans have ever made. But anyway, you start throwing that kind of talk, well, maybe
I love your passive-aggressive mumbling. So you might as well just speak up and tell us there.
You start. If that's where the conversation is, we're going to repeal the Second Amendment. Then you might as well end the discussion, because the gun rights folks are not going to join in. They see where this is leading, and you can put in all of these things, and I think some of them are very good things to put in, but they're not going to stop a crazy person from getting a gun and shooting up a place. And so the worry on the gun rights side is that, okay, when all this doesn't work, what's next? They're coming for your guns. And I think John Paul Stevens' statement and the rhetoric you heard at the march last week, where they weren't talking about let's do red flag, let's do a mental health screen, let's do all that. It was let's take the guns. That shuts down the debate on this issue. I think there's an opportunity here to put some things in place that do make sense. But I think if the rhetoric is going to be let's take the guns, nothing's going to happen.
That's my fear. If you start right here and then all of a sudden you go to 60.
Once upon a time in this country, it was unthinkable to treat me as a full citizen with rights to vote and all these other. I mean, we have come a long way from these very antiquated notions that the founders had in the Constitution. They themselves said this shouldn't last more than 20 or 50 years before people revisit it. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, let's think about what they were saying and whether it makes any sense to have the same framework almost 300 years ago.
I understand, though, that there are people out there who would come out the First Amendment the same way. And the example you used, that was extending right, not stripping away rights.
Well, the idea that the First and the Second Amendments should be treated the same, I think, also is a little strange, because I can't kill you with my words. I can kill you with a gun. They're two different things, and we can't just keep saying, well, they're all amendments.
And I can't defend myself with words. I can defend myself with a gun, which was the point of the Second Amendment.
All right, time now for a few more quick headlines. Couple of things.
I don't need a gun. I don't want a gun.
A couple of things I want to get to. Nolan just said, we got to get you a gun. And that just blew up the entire show. I mean, I don't even know where to go from here.
That.
All right, so two things I wanted to get to really quick. Crazy political happenings in Macomb County. It's not the first time I've ever said that. It's probably not going to be the last time I've ever said that. And also, Governor Snyder, was in Detroit this week talking about pushing, you guys need to get regional transit done in 2018. And he didn't really say exactly how to do that, but he said that's very important. So I'm
Did he say how he was going to help?
Exactly. Well, I think that would be part of it. I think
we gave him a lot of credit when he went to Mackinac and put this RTA thing together, but so much more was needed. I mean, we needed a structure to go along with RTA that allowed these bus systems to be combined so that people would be more accepting of it. I think the proposal would have passed last time if he'd have done that, but that requires Lansing to act.
So Warren Evans came out with his own plan now, and so it's like a Wayne County kind of going it alone without Macomb and Oakland County. Does it go anywhere when you don't have the entire region?
I don't know. I think it can pass with what they have. It's a step forward, and maybe we ought to just say that's the best we can do for now and come back to it.
RTA put it on the ballot because they had said they wouldn't put it on the ballot without the political leaders on board. So will they reverse on that and put it on the ballot?
At some point, you've got to stop letting one or two people hold the entire region hostage over this issue. And I mean that's an extreme way of saying that, and I don't mean that.
I think that's fair, but
it
didn't pass last time when you had both of those leaders of those counties passive.
Well, so you came close in Oakland, right? Macomb, I think, was caught up in the wave election that brought us Donald Trump. I'm not sure that that's an indicator that it can't pass. This is a different plan. It spreads the transit, peanut butter a little thinner,
why not make it a plan
broader,
that actually makes sense for the region?
Well, they're trying.
Why not go back and do the hard work, or I don't know how hard it would even be now, but to put these systems together so people understand.
You're talking about getting rid of the three systems.
Get it and put it in one. I mean, the suburban communities, Oakland County and Macomb, both support SMART.
Right.
They've always passed the SMART millage.
Right.
They don't understand this one. They don't understand why they're paying to support two different bus systems that, by the way, they don't use.
Look, they haven't done it in 2 years since the failure of it in 2016.
But that's where Snyder could have led on it.
Well, we'll have to see. Hey, really quick, Macomb County. I think we all opened the paper. We're like, Karen Spranger.
That's really
it's a bizarre story.
The reason this person was disqualified, I think, really gives you a window into some of the real desperate existences that you have in places like Macomb County. I mean, it reminded me of stories I used to read when I lived in
Well, so she wasn't actually a legitimate resident, so she could not run for office.
But really, it was that she had a house that seemed uninhabitable that she claims she was living in, couldn't afford to fix up.
And, you know, it does, she was living in her car, it does raise the question, can homeless people run for office? But
Right.
I don't, be careful about making her a victim. I mean, she has been erratic as heck
she's been a real
since she's been in office. I mean,
but she got
there's
elected.
questions
How did
about
she get
her.
elected? That's always my
And by slim margin,
Take a look at the roster of elected officials in the
but
state.
you know what? But you could also say the wave of she's new to politics. She'll bring a fresh
She
perspective.
got caught up on the Trump wave out there.
All right.
But, I mean, she's not fit for
We're going to
office.
have to leave that one there. Okay, finally tonight, a One Detroit special report. I'd like you to take you to Islandview. It's a neighborhood on the city's east side near Belle Isle, and it's seen its share of changes over the past few years and more to come. So we spent some time listening to the concerns of people who live there about what the future of their neighborhood could be.
We are foreclosing people's homes. We are shutting off water. We know that all these issues exist.
We're at a community meeting in Islandview, a neighborhood of about 6,000 people you might not know the name of, but you've been there if you've gone to Belle Isle. It's home to the St. Bonaventure Monastery, Capuchin Soup Kitchen, and the Solanus Casey Center. And it's here that the renowned downtown boxing gym recently relocated, and more is coming, including an 8 to 10-story high-rise retail residential project along Jefferson Avenue, and what's being called the Beltline Greenway, that extends from the river through the neighborhood where an old railroad line used to run. At the Church of the Messiah, residents recently gathered to talk about the issues.
What are some of the things in your day-to-day work or in your day-to-day living that are most pressing for you right now in Detroit?
Housing, affordable and livable.
Islandview is one of the neighborhoods that Detroit Public Television, Community Development Advocates of Detroit, or CDAD as it's called, and the University of Michigan's Metro Area Community Study will be listening to as citizens as we dig deeper into the issues that people want to talk more about.
It's the gun violence. It's, am I gonna be killed at school? Am I gonna be killed in the streets?
In places like Parkland, the children are afraid of being killed in school. Our kids are afraid of being killed on the way to school or home from school. There's a whole different atmosphere, and they're not afraid of metal detectors in school or being patted down like they're in prison. They're desensitized to that. They want to make sure that they get an education too, but they're concerned about their neighborhoods and their communities in terms of gun violence.
Is a lot of children are missing. We have a lot of our black children that have gone missing, and it's not publicized.
And you don't get that beat.
No, you don't get the Amber Alert for our children because there's so much human trafficking. It's somebody taking our babies and never to be found, and it's not talked about, but you'll see their pictures in gas stations all the time. I know about 10 children from the east side that are missing, and nobody talks about it.
So we all sat in the basement of the Church of the Messiah for about 2 hours and started a conversation that covered a lot. And one person asked me what story I was reporting on that night. And I told him that we were there to just listen instead of come in and report what we think people needed to know.
I truly believe that every resident that's sitting at this table either has a family member or a close acquaintance who has been incarcerated. That's right. However, the irony and the contradiction in it is you have a large pool of men who want to be productive in society. A lot of men who have come home and become husbands, business owners, have gotten degrees, been in a position to employ, yet they're still being marginalized and discriminated against.
Detroit didn't get in the situation it was in overnight. It took years of that. Yeah. And when you stop and make disinvestments in neighborhoods and communities, you're going to get in trouble. You have to counteract that and put some different ingredients into it. So if people are serious, then we need to change the ingredients. I mean, these things are cliche, but all children should have the exact same rights. There should be investment in communities and neighborhoods. Once you do these things, it changes the mindset.
We'll be having more conversations about Detroit and do a whole lot more listening, and we'll be sharing what we find.
We have everything it is that we need in this community. We can show the rest of Detroit how to do it because we did change our neighborhood. We are educating our kids. We are taking care of our seniors. We are looking out for returning citizens. And let me just say, for anybody who don't live in Islandview, I feel sorry for you. Because the thing is, Islandview is the place to live because we're going to have a much more equitable community. That needs to be our concentration more than anything else. You can show people better than you can tell them. That's right. Yeah, that was fast.
Our thanks to Pastor Barry for having us there. We're heading into the holiday weekend, Easter, and of course, it's the biggest holiday for Nolan and Stephen. It's opening day week. It was supposed to be opening day on Thursday, but instead, it's going to have to be on Friday. Gentlemen, predictions for the year? They're like, can we wear the hats for the whole show? And I was like, no, this is not a hat-wearing show.
This hat's older than Christy.
There you go.
25. It's hard to be older than 25.
They have new hats this year because of the logo change.
Yeah.
I got some camo hats. I might get one of them.
That would be good. All right, guys. Happy Easter. It's good to see you. Yeah. That's going to do it for MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. Find us on Facebook and Twitter, of course, MiWeek.org. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Thursday for MiWeek. Take care.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.